Then why invest in South Africa? We're a Canadian company, so we had the opportunity to choose with a project in North America, Nevada. Why in South Africa? It is still one of the most prospective and mineral-rich countries in the world today. It has a significant diversity in the number of minerals to be mined. Gold, silver, diamonds, platinum, manganese, there's just so much of them. And that's why the major producers are in South Africa. Historically, yes, it was gold and diamonds. Now it's platinum, base metals. Gold as a component of what is being mined in South Africa has decreased significantly. But it is still extremely important. Let's go to the gold industry. What we're mining compared to what the other guys are mining is vastly different. And I'll try and use our project just to give you a bit of a comparison. Right now, the average depth of mining in South Africa is between 3 to 4 kilometers below surface. So it's dangerous, it's deep, it's high cost. Our project, it's a new project, the first project to be built in South Africa in probably 30 years. Greenfields, we start mining 300 meters below surface. So it's a completely different environment to what you would currently find in South Africa today. Again, most of the low grade, the better stuff has been mined already. And the low reserves have been depleted by mining. So it has a history of large international investments. It has seen that. But has the risk appetite changed to date, just based on the political environment that has changed? Let's go back to what was probably a most significant event, and this was the Mining Charter, or the MPRDA, the Mineral and Petroleum Resources Development Act. You can see it's a mouthful. That came into effect in April 2003. At the time, that sent shockwaves through the mining industry. People were wondering what was happening in South Africa with this new act that was brought about, which effectively ended private ownership of mining rights in South Africa. Because bear in mind what happened in the past, the big guys held on to everything. If it was Anglo-American, if it was Anglo-Gold, it was Gen Gold, it was everybody, and there was really no small operators in South Africa. So that if stopped, the state became the owner of the rights that were not used. So it was a question of use it or lose it. Before a certain time, you could either dispose of it, sell it, or give it back to the state or the government, who then would make it available to new entrants or participants in the market. So what happens now is that the private sector, through a licensing system, which is not dissimilar to anywhere else in the world, can acquire rights to explore and exploit minerals. So what was the positive impact? What happened subsequently to that? It meant that a number of these parcels of land became available to use to small guys like Great Basin Gold. As I said earlier, Great Basin Gold is a Canadian company which looked for opportunities anywhere in the world, and at that time mineral rights like this became available for mining. So it saw an emergence of the new local and international mining companies, and quite a lot of them, Canadian and Australian. But I think if you look back at it, the way that the act was handled, the way that it was presented to the market, it was done badly. And that resulted in a lot of shareholder uncertainty and risk. And that's why, if you have a look at the South African industry today, the primarily listed South African companies, they are not that well supported by the Europeans as they were in the past. And I think that that's a situation that should change. I think the government of South Africa should give investors a lot more certainty, because when the cycle changes, we should see a recovery in the South African stock prices. The codes of good practice, that came following the MPRDA that I spoke about. Develop a housing and conditions standard for the minerals industry, something it did not have, and develop a code of good practice as well. Bear in mind, this was trying to bring the South African industry in line with what was happening in first world countries. And as an operator and a producer in South Africa, we actually did not have a problem with that. You'll see our social plan and the way that we get involved in the community. I don't think you can do business anywhere in the world if you don't follow these principles as well. But then with the code of good practice, of course, again, it was slightly badly handled. There was uncertainty about the mining charter and does it supersede the codes. And just consistently what I get from investors is we want certainty. We're not going to put our money, especially in market conditions like today, we're not going to put our money in an area where we're not certain that something would happen to it. Then just expanding on this socio-economic charter, what it did do, and of course this is where this whole BEE, we hear a lot about black empowerment, the framework, the targets and the timetable, the entry of the historically disadvantaged South Africans into the mining industry. Now I'm talking about the 26% shareholding. What happened around the BEE? How it was supposed to empower a broad group of historically disadvantaged South Africans in 2 sessions. First a 15% and then 11% to give you a total of 26%. And this, you know, if you have a look at the mining industry, despite the new mining charter, you'll see that a lot of the BEE deals have taken place. As Great Basin Gold, we did do our BEE deal as well. We have our Black Empowerment partner. Bear in mind what we did is they actually paid us to take up 26% of our project. We then converted that into shares in the listed entity. So our BEE partners today are shareholders in the listed entity. They share the same risk as what any other shareholder would have if they invested in the company. So there's a number of models that were put in place. There were a lot of models where loans were made available to these BEE companies, which was seen as being slightly unfair, which was seen as financing the participation. I think the other thing that BEE companies misunderstood is cycles. You know, before September 2008, there was so much money available, commodity prices were high, everybody thought that things could not get any worse. And of course we know what happened. Things did get worse. So a lot of these BEE deals, which were based on dividends and returns and profitability, then you could say failed. And of course that has a bad impact on what the government tried to achieve with that as well. So investors prefer certainty or low risk environment when taking investment decisions. And this is what we keep on telling government, is that when you draw up these acts, when you create these rules that allow for investment and participation, at least be clear that people understand the risk that they are taking. You can see this was just some of the wording in the mining charter that caused the concern with investors, is that it says the mineral resources do not rest with all the people, but rather in the office of the state president. It gets disputed because of bad language when the law gets put into place. And then this once empowered, always empowered. I mean, that's something that I get confronted with consistently in North America, is that you've done your BEE deal now. What happens if these BEE companies sell out of the company? Have you been empowered, or do you have to do that again? In our opinion, we have. We've done our deal, we've allowed the participation, they actually paid us the cash, we built the mine. We started building the mine in South Africa with the cash we got in. But there's no clarity. And I think until government also gets back and gives that certainty to investors, we will also see a lot of people avoiding investing in South Africa. So the question really is, will companies who have successfully completed their BEE deals find themselves to do another if the BEE company sells out? You can see my logic tells me what's done is done, and you've qualified, you've got the tick. And the fact that the government remains quiet on that issue is something that is worrying people.